Hello everyone, my name is Beattie and I'm a consultant with Agile by Design. And today I'd like to take you through how we're using systems thinking to understand AI's impact on organizations. Now, before I get to the AI in organizations model, I'd like to introduce the modeling technique we're going to be using throughout the presentation. And it's called the stock and flow diagram, and if you'll allow me, I'd like to take you through it and show you a little bit about how it works. So, what you'll see here is you'll see that there is a rectangle here labeled open tasks. And open tasks is a stock. Think of a stock as an accumulation of things, like a list of open tasks. And notice that this stock, open tasks, is connected through the completion rate to closed tasks. Okay, so that's another stock, closed tasks. And what we would think about here is essentially there is a flow of work. A flow of completed work from open tasks into closed tasks. So we know what our stocks are. The faucet right here, completion rate, represents a flow. So think about this as the rate at which I'm able to convert open tasks into closed tasks. The other thing I want to point out here is that there are other factors on the model as well, things like effort. So if I add or remove effort, I'll have an effect on my completion rate. And if I add or remove some overtime, I will also have an effect on my completion rate. And this is a really powerful technique for modeling systems because what you can do is you can lay out your stocks and flows and your other factors, and then you can see what happens when a given factor changes because you can see what the effect on the stocks and flows is going to be. It allows you to predict a future or the next state of a system, which is a really, really powerful tool to have in your tool belt. So the base layer of the model that we're going to be talking about today is a basic innovation model. And here's the foundation of it, and it's essentially a couple of stocks and flows. So here's a stock of customer or user expectations. So think of this as the things that people will want or the things that they expect your product to do. And notice that that stock is connected to the required innovation rate. So this is an organization's required innovation rate. So what they've got to do to kind of keep up with the marketplace. And the expectations are connected through organizational innovativeness to satisfaction. So as I was saying, to keep up with the marketplace, what I'm defining organizational innovativeness as here is our ability to build products and services that meet customers' needs or their expectations. And the innovativeness is determined by the difference between the organization's actual innovation rate, so their ability to build products and services, and the required innovation rate. And this really shows a really interesting perspective because if your organization isn't innovative fast enough, you effectively get disrupted. Okay, so I'll just bring that in here and I'll show you what I mean there is that disruption occurs when the actual innovation rate isn't high enough. Your market is asking more of you, or your customers and your users are asking more of you. And this has happened before. It's happened with horses and cars, and that's going to be an example that I use over the next two just to kind of elaborate on our model. So horses and cars, well, early 1900s, there already were cars, okay, but they were kind of expensive. But what they kind of showed to people is that they were very convenient. You could just kind of get up and go, and they were pretty fast. They went pretty good over long distances. They didn't break down as much, and they didn't require that much labor or upkeep to maintain compared to a horse. And as the customer or the user's expectations changed, obviously the required innovation rate of the horse increases because now the horse has to be a little bit more convenient, go a little faster, go a little bit longer, take less upkeep. But that's not really possible. Horses kind of are what they are, which meant that their actual innovation rate is pretty fixed. And as I just said, as the required innovation rate increases, but the actual innovation rate stays the same, disruption occurs. And that's exactly what happened. So going a little tiny bit further, I'm going to add some extra market dynamics using that same example. And you can see that there are some new blue stocks on the chart here. So let me kind of describe what I mean by the market dynamics. So using that same example, new products. So turn of the century, there are cars out there, and they're primarily for wealthy people. They're pretty expensive, But they're showing everybody that, hey, like, this is a pretty cool new thing. You can go far. You can bring your friends along. And that makes it desirable. Okay, so when it becomes desirable, we start creating user expectations. As I described earlier, when user expectations change, the required rate of innovation changes as well. Now, with these expectations, if you can actually build a car, market opportunities will start presenting themselves to you. And then if you can actually do it profitably, i.e. it's a viable business, more competition is surely going to show up. And this is actually the powerful thing that Henry Ford did. There were a lot of people who wanted a car, but they were pretty expensive. So through mass production, essentially the feasibility of building a car went up, which meant that the market opened up to manufacturers that were able to produce in mass. And this made the business very attractive because now there's a really, really large pool of people that want a car and it's not as expensive to build, right? So the opportunity is very viable, which means that the new products come on the line and unfortunately our horse gets disrupted. And the story of the horse getting disrupted is essentially this one. The required innovation rose up. The actual innovation rate stays the same. The horse doesn't innovate. Customers and users aren't satisfied, which makes it uncompetitive versus the car. Okay, so the available market opportunities are now being captured primarily by Henry Ford and the car manufacturers. And obviously, when you're able to capture a lot of opportunities, and there were a lot of opportunities captured, like Henry Ford was making 1 million cars a year, it allowed Henry Ford and the other car manufacturers to reinvest and add more innovations to their portfolio of cars. So there were other models and different interiors. And this allowed them to maintain a bit of an innovative presence. And the car definitely changed and innovated a lot over the next 20, 30 years. And continues to do so until today, obviously. But we didn't come here to talk about cars or horses. We came here to talk about AI. So let me show you how AI layers on top of such a model. And to use a bit of precedent, we've seen this happen before, which is early 2000s, late 90s or so, Google comes along, okay? And Google makes the world's information very accessible to us. And it has the effect of supercharging knowledge workers because now you can just Google it. It became a verb. You could essentially just type in whatever you wanted to know into a little bar on the internet and you could learn whatever you needed to learn. And you could see whatever information was presented to you. And this allowed you to be a little bit more innovative. Okay, it also allowed your competition to be a little bit more innovative. But that's not AI. In effect, AI is not doing information. AI is doing knowledge, which is quite powerful because what it means is now I'm able to leverage an expert opinion on something that I would have had to learn myself, which would have taken a really, really, really long time. And this is actually one of the primary disruptors that we're seeing, right? Which is that the access to this knowledge is empowering knowledge workers and supercharging them across all industries. It's a very, 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 very powerful disruptor. But you don't get it for free. And what I mean by that is that knowledge workers, they're going to need some sense-making ability to actually leverage AI. And what I mean by sense-making, and I'll just read the definition out of my notes here. Sense-making seeks out hidden meaning based on explicit cues by deconstructing and contextualizing presented information. That's a really, really thick way of saying they need to be able to figure it out. And I've definitely been using AI for a very, very long time, and we know that it has a hallucination problem, which means that it can kind of confidently say something that isn't actually true, which means that you've got to be able to kind of parse through it and figure it out. And this makes sense-making ability, right here, a very, very, very powerful leverage point in being able to supercharge knowledge workers. How well can they figure it out? And how well can they understand whether this is a really, really good snippet of code to add to the code base, or let's leave it well enough alone, or maybe we need to make some changes to it. Can't just blindly accept it. So sense making ability is definitely a factor here. There's another one as well, and this is going to complete our model, okay? Which is the thing that's going to allow a supercharged knowledge worker to actually produce innovations is the organization's integration rate. Okay? And it's not just your integration rate, as I said earlier, it's also your competitor's integration rate. So to what extent is your organization able to productively leverage AI for innovation purposes? And this means actually having knowledge of the tools and actually knowing how to use them. And you can tell here that it's a knife that cuts both ways. And you're in a bit of a race against your competitors in this regard. Because if they're able to use the tools better than you are, they are going to start spinning that disruptive cycle we saw in the previous slide. But now that we've built our model, let's actually talk about some of the disruptions we're expecting from AI beyond what we can already see on the model itself. And I'm going to introduce 3. So the first one that I'd like to introduce is this one: AI-powered product discovery. It's pretty much every day in the news you're going to read about a new AI tool coming up with some amazing products. And we're talking about AI drugs. We're talking about AI metals. We're talking about AI art. We're talking about AI music. We're talking about AI writing. We're talking about AI everything. AI is able to index the opportunity space in a really, really powerful way and make recommendations for new products. And I'll be honest with you, they're pretty good. I've been playing around with AI art for a couple of years now and playing around with AI music for a little while now, and I'm very impressed by what it can do. And as we saw in the previous view, AI-powered product discovery brings new products online, and should those be desirable, customer and user expectations are going to change. And we know that when customers and user expectations change, the required innovation rate goes up. This brings me to my second disruptor. Second disruptor is this one: personalized everything. And like I was saying about AI music, we're going to talk about personalized AI music and personalized AI art and personalized AI writing, personalized AI movies, personalized everything. It's a very, very, very powerful tool because it can essentially pull out all the signals that are coming off of us and create a nice little preference profile for us and build us a really, really awesome product that we love. I have a couple of open bets out there that say that in about 5 years, your favorite musician is going to be an AI. Your favorite movie will have been built by AI. Your favorite writer will be an AI. It's incredible what it can already do, and it's going to blow our minds in the next little while how it personalizes it to our preference profile that make us really, 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 really love it. But you might think that, well, because it can already be done, is it actually going to turn into a business? And I think the jury isn't out on that one. I think it's pretty much a shut case here that what we're seeing is the cost to create digital products is going to 0. So I can create artwork now for virtually free. We're going to see this with drug discovery, that it makes it very, very cheap to create new drugs. We're going to see it with any legal document, that instead of having to go to an expensive lawyer, you can actually type it into the AI and it'll give you a very, 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 very good opinion. And look at this. That essentially closes this loop. And because it's a closed loop, it effectively reinforces itself, which means that as this spins, customer and users' expectations are affected every time, thus driving the required innovation rate up. It's kind of incredible. What we're actually talking about, when I lay it out like this and I just state it, is that we're looking at a drastic increase in any organization's required innovation rate. And if organizations are already trying to keep up and they're kind of falling behind, it's only going to get worse. But I don't want to say all is lost. But what I will say is based on what Fei-Fei Li says here, and Fei-Fei Li is the former chief scientist of machine learning and AI at Google, and it's a great quote here. So AI won't replace humans, but humans using AI will. And I find that this is a really, really powerful quote because it kind of explains what the future is. It's that we're going to be looking at an AI fusion with human power future. And I might actually take this a little bit further. I'm going to drag these little words here. I've been kind of getting at this, but AI won't replace organizations, but organizations using AI will. Let me show you how that's going to happen. So, as I said earlier, organizations are rapidly adopting AI. And what was previously a bit of a niche thing when I got into it about a decade ago, it's now everywhere. Mentions of AI on earnings calls are happening all the time. Every organization has an AI strategy. It's a $150 billion industry today, expected to hit $300 billion by 2025. The ball is already rolling, and it's rolling really, really, really fast. And these factors right here are going to determine whether your organization gets replaced or whether it succeeds. And it's partially because of the competitive dynamics here. You can look at yourself being on this side of the loop or your competitors being on this side of the loop. And because when this spins, you force your competitors to innovate quicker. If you get ahead of them, they are unable to satisfy as many customers or users, which makes them less competitive. Okay, so as your organization is able to capture more market opportunities, like this, your organization is able to further reinvest. That's a very, 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 very powerful position to be in. Because what it does is it creates a situation where you have a success to the successful archetype in the industry, actually. Essentially, we're talking about a winner-take-all kind of world here, where those who get in early and really figure it out are going to put their competitors into really, really, really difficult situations where they have to really invest quickly to boost their actual innovation rate. Otherwise, they're falling behind. The second takeaway that I'm going to take you through is effectively this one, is that based on those dynamics I just presented, the required rate of innovation will never be as low as it is today. Okay, so as this loop starts spinning and it affects the required innovation rate, it's already been spinning, it's going to continue spinning. And it means that organizations are really going to have to start tackling this. The gap between the required innovation rate and the actual innovation rate. And it means that if innovation isn't part of your culture, it's not part of your DNA today, it needs to be very, 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 very soon. It has become a competitive necessity. And the challenge here is that an innovative culture can't really be bought the same way that you can buy a tool. So the same way that you can integrate AI into your business operations, you can't really get a plug-in for culture where you just turn on innovation. You've got to do other things. So things like customer intimacy. So to what extent do you know your customer? To what extent can you preempt or understand what they're actually looking for and what their expectations are so as to build the right thing? Okay, so minimize the number of failed attempts by being very, 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 very close to your customer. To what extent is your talent able to be successful? To what extent can they explore the problem space? To what extent can they bring their best selves to work and help you innovate by coming up with these really, really interesting solutions. To what extent are your teams able to, and I'll just put that one over here, to what extent are your teams covering all the bases? To what extent do you provide an environment where you can put diverse perspectives onto a problem and uncover your blind spots? And to what extent is your culture tuned for learning? Okay, so how well is customer and user satisfaction feeding into your innovation? And how well is your captured opportunities, the investments from that being funneled into innovation and that learning loop being closed? These are very, very, very high leverage initiatives, but as I said earlier, you can't really buy it. Innovation is an approach, it's a mindset, and it's a very large change that's going to take some while that organizations are going to need to get ahead of. Finally, my last takeaway here, it's based around this tweet. And Kent Beck is well known. He's the creator of Extreme Programming. He's also one of the original signatories to the Agile Manifesto, and it's a great tweet. It says, "I've been reluctant to try ChatGPT. Today I got over that reluctance. Now I understand why I was reluctant. The value of 90% of my skills just dropped to zero. The leverage for the remaining 10% went up 1000x. I need to recalibrate." And it's a bit of a head scratcher here because Ken doesn't say what the 10% is. And if you look into the quote, into these the replies here, a bunch of people are kind of guessing, but I don't think Kent ever said what the 10% are. So I'm going to give you a bit of a preview of what I think that Kent was talking about. And it's really focusing on the top of the diagram. And just to give you a bit of a heuristic when you're thinking about systems diagrams like this, when you're moving farther and farther away, let's just say I'm optimizing for innovativeness, the farther and farther I move away in the graph or the system diagram, the higher leverage a given factor has. And I'm looking at this one, and I'm looking at this one, and I'm looking at this one. Now, to give you a bit of a preview here, right before I recorded this video, I went and looked at the custom GPT shop that you can get through OpenAI, and you can click on Explore GPTs, and you can see all of the various custom GPTs you can get access to. And it's pretty impressive. You can get a travel agent, a writer, a developer, a data analyst, financial planner, consultant, lawyer. It's pretty impressive. And what I kind of realized is that we're not actually talking about access to knowledge anymore. We're actually talking about packaged knowledge and potentially packaged knowledge workers themselves. So isn't that interesting that these custom GPTs are effectively little knowledge workers that you can bring into your team? This kind of changes what it means to be a knowledge worker, doesn't it? Because now I have got a whole bunch of AI collaborators to work with that are going to help us bring value to the organization, which means that as a knowledge worker, I would probably do well to move downstream a little bit. And what I mean by that is that I anticipate the knowledge workers are going to become, and let me just get that out of the way, system designers, builders, and integrators. So expect to see fusion teams of AIs and AI agents and knowledge workers that are working collaboratively, and the role of the knowledge worker is now to figure out how to fuse these capabilities together into such a way that they can be used for productive, innovative benefit. Now, when that happens, it kind of changes what skills you need. Where previously I'd said you need sense-making ability, which is more about, as I said earlier, figuring things out. It's going to be hard to figure things out as quickly because there's just going to be too much to know. And there's almost got to be this acceptance of the unknown and how things are going to be working. So what I believe is going to happen is the future knowledge worker is actually going to be a generalist. And a generalist that learns very, 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 very quickly. And in such an environment, meta skills grow in importance. Let me put that in there. Meta skills. So meta skills are the skills that enable you to learn quickly and to build new capabilities quickly. So I've got a couple on the slide here. So the ability to learn quickly, the ability to communicate and facilitate and bridge so as to be able to create cross-organizational innovation. And to sense make. Sense making is almost a subset of meta skills, but sense make and modeling skills to reason in the presence of these rapidly escalating complex situations. It's going to be a very, very, very interesting time. And before I share some parting words, I just thought I'd drop a bit of a prompt for you. As leaders, think of what it's going to be like to lead a team of knowledge workers and their AI agents. It's never happened before, so I haven't really thought about this too deeply yet, and I'm kind of curious to hear about what everybody else thinks, but it's just one of those things that, it's a bit of a head scratcher that we're going to have to see what that actually looks like. So, in conclusion, 3 main takeaways. The first one, definitely move with purpose. Whether you're ahead in the game or you're a bit behind in the game, move with purpose to integrate AI into your organization. Second takeaway is really focus on driving those fundamental enablers of innovation that I described in the video. And the third takeaway is develop and nurture meta skills in anticipation of the next era of knowledge work. Thank you very much. Really looking forward to discussing this further with you.